follow any practice, or did you have any teacher?
I never had any teacher, and I was not seeking anything. Yes, I was seeking something, but not that. I didn't have any idea that such a thing existed. So I was in a very good position because I was innocent. I was not seeking. I was seeking something, but not that. So, and what's more, I was not, how do you say that, could you say that? I was not very nervous about anything, you see. I was full of amusement. I was amusing myself to death, trying to understand what I wanted to understand, which had nothing to do with that I business, nothing to do. So, in fact, that the ideal circumstances, the perfect circumstances, the chap does exactly what he should do without knowing he's doing it. He's doing something useful. And so I was, you could say, meditating, but with my intelligence. And on a small phrase from Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Of course, it's not, the therefore should not be there. It's, I think I am, God exists. That's the real sentence. And I was working on that because I had a few days before I had an intuition that there was a truth in that sentence, a mysterious truth which concerned me at an incredible degree. I mean, if I could get the answer from that question, not intellectual answer, but the real answer, I would know myself. But I was just trying to break that secret, that fabulous secret. I had no idea that there was a me behind me. I mean, absolutely no idea. And so it went on for hours. I was meditating, and after 1 or 2 hours, I was extremely tired. My mind was extremely tired, but nevertheless, it was so amusing, and so it's such a defeat that I was going on. So at the moment, I said to myself, "Well, I'm stupid to go on because I'm dead tired. My brain won't resist. My mind won't resist."
What were you doing exactly?
Well, I was repeating inside myself, and may I say that I had a very good notion of what was the inside at that time. I was 16. So I was repeating to myself, I am, therefore I am. I think that, therefore I am. But I was working on that on a very special way, not the usual way. I was not thinking really, trying to get the answer out of a reasoning, thinking. I was just trying to put the real meaning of the words. I think, I am, in the sentence. And of course, my idea was if I succeeded in that curious work, strange work, well, the meaning of the thing would come out. And it would come out to me as a blow, a fantastic blow. So in fact it was quite realistic, the way. But I've never thought in another way, you see. My way of thinking is always concrete, realistic. I don't go with abstractions. But nevertheless, I think my intelligence was involved in it, really involved in it. So I did that for hours, as I told you. And at the moment, I said to myself, well, it's no use going on. You're crazy to push on that pedal any longer because you're dead. I had the impression that I was crawling on the floor with bloody knees, you see, bleeding knees. I was nearly on the verge of fainting. And suddenly, well, I kept on pushing toward that goal. And suddenly, something very incredible happened, that I was awake. And may I tell you that I was 16, and my mind was was not asleep, was awake. My mind was alive and awake, and I felt alive and awake. And suddenly, well, I found myself behind all I knew of my mind, behind, you could say beyond, but it's in the wrong direction, behind, and what was I there? It's the first time in fact, the first time I contacted me, I connected that famous I principle. So I became I, and what was I? It was pure consciousness, aware of itself. And that was an infinite. There was a really concrete infinite, it's not an idea. It was there, it was infinite. And what was I? Well, I was that thing. It was me. In fact, that's an important point, that you could say, wait, it's another abstraction, is something. But it's not, it was not at all an abstraction. It was me. I means me. It means myself, in French, moi. But you see, it was not unpersonal. On the contrary, it was the fantastic discovery, concrete discovery that I personally was a soul, was a pure spirit, was pure consciousness, but it was me. It was me. So I was born on that at that moment. And there's that thing is very queer. That thing I became is very queer, because it works in a very, it has a very special way of working, because it does itself. You see, it's not a state in which you could lie in a bourgeois way. It's not a big armchair where you lie there. No, it's fundamentally active. So that thing does that thing, that infinite of consciousness or awareness is active, and it makes itself. It does itself. Well, it does not. When you say it makes itself, or there's a temptation to refer to an action in time. Of course, it's not an action in time, but I suppose it's what they call in philosophy a pure act. But it's an act, and who had the idea of the act and the intention of the act? Well, it was the act itself. So the thing, well, it's a verb. You see, it's not the state. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a verb, and the verb was.
It generates itself?
Well, generated itself. And the thing has been going on for 50 years now. First, it's always the first time. That's where it's difficult to describe the thing, because it's true that it's been going on for 50 years, but in fact, when I do it, when the I principle does it, but the I principle is me. You don't have to split the thing in I and me. The illusion is not me, it's what I think about me. I mean, so that I, me, generates itself, and it's been going on for 50 years, but it's always the first time. So it's a paradox for the logic, because it's let's say, a million time, or a billion time, but it's always the first time. The first, no change. No change. Very strange.
Yeah, because the idea, the time itself is an idea, is something that we have created. So this is not in this time. This is not.
No, the way we live time is very bad, false. We think there's the notion of cause and effect in our conception of time. So that's an hallucination. Time is not that. I don't say that time doesn't exist, but it's not what we think. Space exists also, but it's absolutely not what we think. Our representation of space is entirely false and an illusion. But what's very nice, it's beyond, you can use that word, beyond that false conception of space and that false conception of time, there's a real space, a real word, and a real time, and that's, you have a name in English for that, it's Eden. C'est ça. But at the first time, I mean, it didn't change anything about perception, no major changes occurred in my perception of the world. I mean, in fact, the world was not there, you see. The world was not invented from that point of view, very special point of view. So there was just that pure and sheer consciousness, aware of itself, and that was me, that was I, and that there was an infinite value. An infinite value. I can't say God, because God is over there, and this is exactly in the other direction. So it's impossible to have some devotion for that thing. It's impossible to have some reverence for that thing, because if you have some devotion for something, it's an object, not the pure subject, not in the other direction. So, in fact, I can spit on that thing. It doesn't harm it. It won't ever. But it will go. The thing itself will approve, because my intention is good. My intention is to put the thing at the right place, not over there, but here now, at the center of myself, beyond the center, the normal center of myself. So, what should be said is that there's an infinite value. I cannot call it bliss or felicity. It's not exactly the right word. It's not ecstasy. It's much more than ecstasy. So it's very mysterious, because the infinite value is there. If you dared to compare that with other values, well, all the other values, love included, would seem nothing, but of course you don't do that, you don't compare. Compare means thinking, relating things and thinking. You don't have to compare. Well, that's what you call an intrusion, and an intrusion has barefoot feet. So, in fact, that value is very mysterious. But of course, you don't discuss the fact of that value, of that evidence. It's there, and it's you. And you know immediately that you know everything. See, not intellectually, because all knowledges have been destroyed. I don't know a goddamn thing. Even at 7 years, when I was 7 years old, I knew lots of things. Now I don't know any goddamn thing. I'm too young for that, you see. That thing is very young, you see. It's just being born. It's borning, just being born. It doesn't know. It's so young that nobody has tried to put into it some knowledge. It's too young. So I don't know a goddamn thing. I don't even know that, you see. So what was the other question?
You want to go to the next question?
Yeah.
Well, I had this question, I think you answered it. In the awakening, who awakens?
Yes, but that's the main question, of course, because I have met lots of people. I don't regret it, but I don't approve it. I think that playing golf or walking with a dog along a road is not much better, but just the same quality. I mean, it has no importance. Anyway, everything points to that thing, you see. When I'm speaking of that thing, well, in a way, in me it points to that thing. But when I'm combing my hair, or what I have the rest of my hair, well, I'm doing something which is, which points to that thing in the same thing. Anything we feel, each time we feel something, well, we think something, we make a discovery. Every time we live something, well, it points immediately in that direction, which is absolutely unknown by most of people, which is very queer because it's them. A point on which you could insist that let's take a man or a woman, a human being, which has really a mind and use it. Because if you don't use your mind, the mind is going to pourrir, ça se dit to rot? Rot. It's going to rot. So you absolutely, there's an old préjugé, you should not think, you should not, mind is awful. But the less you use your mind, consciously and with will, the poorest it will become. You see, it will be in a very frightful state. So I think but the same thing is true within the same thing which is true for intelligence and the mind is true for sensibility. If you never feel anything, you'll get nowhere. If you don't use your intelligence, which is a gift, a fantastic gift, well, you'll never get anywhere. So after that, well, I mean, it means that the dream, it's a dream, that no ordinary inner life, which goes in time, well, is a dream. But to be able to awake from that dream, the dream should have some consistency. It should. So you must use it. Because you can, if the dream is not there, you can have no chance of awaking from that dream.
So what is this? What is intelligence, and what does it mean to do?
Well, it's very subtle, because intelligence is, in my opinion, you see, we mix everything. We mix intelligence, that fantastic gift, where to understand something is a shock. It's that shock, each time we understand really something, not superficially, we understand something, even on the pure intellectual level, where it's a shock, it's a commotion. And that commotion reminds me of the ultimate commotion I lived, and I'm still living, of that pure consciousness. So what is the hallucination? Because of course there's an hallucination, and the whole, comment dire, champ de conscience en anglais?
Field of consciousness.
The whole field of conscience is poisoned and is destroyed, and it's destroyed not by intelligence, but by deterioration of that fundamental function. See, so it's not when we think that we make the error. Well, we could say it's a dream, and you must wake up from that. But it's a very light dream, and it's there en fait, it's my, comment on dit un berceau en anglais?
Cradle.
Where I will be born. You see, it's but it's the way we use our intelligence which is in cause, and which makes the hallucination. And it's very difficult in a few seconds or a few minutes to be very complete about the nature of the hallucination and how intelligence is rots. Or you say rot? Yes, rots. Well, it's difficult. But let's say when you awake, in the sense I put into the word, when you awake, you discover something incredible, that all you called before the realities, the truth, and it's very impressive, very impressive. We are circled by the truths and realities. Inside ourselves, we are circled also. And that all that immense field is an hallucination. So there's some, of course, truth, it's an ambivalent word. I mean, it contains the best and the worst. But let's say it roughly, the facts, a very important thing for normal human being, normal human mind, very important, very impressive facts. I'm going to die. There are an incredible number of people on Earth, and they are going to die too, and they will suffer before. And they live on some kind of a sphere. You would say sphere, a sphere, which is called Earth. The quantity. Well, these are facts, and I'm in a bad situation. Financially, I'm in a very bad situation, and affectively, I'm in a very bad situation. Everything goes wrong. Fact. This is a fact. And what do we do when we deal with a fact? We don't do that. Nothing, just a little fly. Puff! We don't crush it at a little fly. We're impressed. Like we're impressed, like we would be with our father. He was very authoritarian. He had a big authority on me. So we are like that. We're on the defensive. But in fact, the difference when you wake up, all that disappears. You're not impressed anymore by truth or facts. You look at a fact, whatever it is. I'm looking for God. I'm looking for the ultimate reality. Well, it's a fact. Well, I look at the fact and I see what it is really. Nothing. A thought. An image, perhaps. Mental image. A fact. A thought. Nothing. And there, of course, I had, before that, I didn't knew it. But I was 16, so I'm in very good shape. Not too many knowledges, and very happy young man. But what I did not know that I had an enormous suitcase, which was breaking my shoulder. I think it was breaking my soul. And in that suitcase, what was there? What could I find in that suitcase? Knowledges, an incredible quantity of knowledges, facts, truth. And suddenly, poof, I put that enormous luggage on the ground. It's not possible because that luggage was me. I thought it was me. So you can. So let's say we are on a kid gare. How is it?
On the quay, in the station, train station.
A platform. A platform of a railroad station. Well, you can. It's difficult to put yourself. The whole meaning of there's in the world myself. Put it on the platform, and go on, whistling happily. Very difficult. But in fact, what we should do, it's very possible, because we are not the suitcase and what it contains. We have nothing to do with it. It's a nice thing. You don't have to spit on it or despise it. But in the normal state of consciousness, well, the suitcase and what it contains pretends to be you. So the Earth is a sphere. I'm born at that in 1931. Yes, and I had a mother. Her name was, her Christian name was Audrey. My father was called Francis. And after that, I lived this and that, lived and that for 50 years. I woke up when I was 16. It never faded away. First, it cannot fade away. It's not a state, it's I. Well, the incredible quantities of facts, you see. And when you deal with facts, as I said, you're very impressed. It's very difficult not to be impressed. The authority is enormous. Remember when you were very young and your father told you something. Well, Alain is a very nice chap, an adorable chap, so he was not nasty with you. But let's say your father was a kind of a brute, very authoritarian. Well, a child cannot resist to the parental authority. It's impossible. Well, fact works like that. but it's an usurpation. They have no authority. You know what is a fact? Even the existence of the universe. There is such a thing as the universe, and it's very big. Even you could speak about cosmos. That's even bigger. Impressive, impressive. A thought, nothing more. Absolutely.
And with this, like this suitcase that you talked about, do you think someone can just decide to put it down, like when you put it down, let's say? Can you just decide to put it down, or does it happen by itself, or does the person need to do some kind of preparation?
Well, it's but for me it happened out of sheer accident. Well, I considered for a very long time as a pure accident. I don't know why that thing that I woke up. I have no idea about it. It has absolutely, and in fact, you see, I was working mentally. The circumstances can be described as very precise. But you could think that what I was doing, that research in my mind, which was full of passion and of amusement, not heavy, something very light, even if it nearly killed me, it was very light. Well, you could think that it's the cause, and the thing which raised is the effect. It's not that. It just raised because it raised, because it raised. It merged because it merged. No. So if you have the intention to get there, which is here, with difficult, with the implication on the level of action is quite awful. I want to go there, but I want to. There is here. You're going to have trouble getting to that point. So what I was saying, I forgot. Quelle était la question?
La question c'était quand on pose la valise.
Yes, but yeah, the problem is, let's say you have the intention to go there, of putting the suitcase on the platform of the railway station, and it's you. Of course, the suitcase is you. So if you leave it there, you cannot go on the platform whistling happily, and freely, for the first time of your life, free, gay, with light, very light, and in a very happy mood, you could say. It's an understatement. But in fact, you can do it. Everybody can. But if you have the intention that if you're crawling in that direction, making horrible efforts, fighting, well, you can fight for a whole life. I mean, but one of the reasons you can fight for a whole life without succeeding is because you have the intention, and the intention is in the luggage. You see, it's the thing you should put down on the platform. The intention seems real. I have the intention of becoming God, or the pure consciousness. I want the ultimate realization. Well, I have nothing against it, but I must immediately point out to that truth that it's part of the hallucination. In fact, it is the suitcase you should put down. You should leave on the ground. And there's another way of putting it. You see, I don't say that we have nothing to do with the suitcase and what it contains. A suitcase could be called the identity, the principle of identity. Well, perfect too. I can. There's no harm in, comment dire, épancher. Difficile. There's no harm in saying or living that, let's say I'm the luggage, you see? Let's say I'm Stephen Jourdain, I have this father, this mother had, and this life had this life. No harm in doing that. So I don't need to. My identity card, in a way, should be destroyed. In another way, it's very pure. It's pure as long as it doesn't pretend to be real. If it's a play, it's perfect, and it's my right. It's my duty even to play in that way. But so in the suitcase, what are the words we could find? We found knowledges, truths, facts, an incredible quantity of facts. In fact, when we look at the tree, we think, or look at some grass, we think we're looking at the tree or some grass. No, it's not true at all. We are looking at what we know about the grass and tree. So we think we are looking at it. We're looking outside. In fact, we're looking inside our own mind. It's a. Alors, what in the suitcase? What word we could find? It's all our determinations. Well, there's no harm in the fact of having some determination, but it depends on the relation, the way you relate yourself with the determination. You see, it's a determination for the other word attributes. Well, for a subject, there's no harm to have an attribute. It's perfect, but of course, he is not the attribute. He's not reducible to the attribute. So I'm not reducible to my determinations. I'm always more than my own determinations. So the way to describe the hallucination is to refer to the feeling we have that we are absolutely involved, entirely involved in our determination, and that we don't exist. We don't have a foot outside, so we don't exist outside. We are circled by our determination, and only inside our determination. But this is absolutely false. False. We're always more than what we think that what we are. So I don't say there's no harm in being the son of that chap and the son of that woman, and even having a nice childhood and a horrible childhood. No harm in that. I mean, this is nothing. But I am not. Well, let's say I can be that. There's no harm being that, but I'm not reducible to that. So I'm more than that. Well, you can put it in a very abstract. If you try to put that in a very short way, you can take the letter A, where obviously A equals A. There's no more in A than A. A is circled by its AIT. It's its own principle. Well, it's not true. A is always more than A, bigger than A, different and bigger than A. So that's the proposition of life. See, and it's true of my what you may call the ultimate self, and always more than itself. And when the I thought ray merges, when the I thought merges, what is the I thought? Fundamentally, it's an object, the first of all the objects, and it's an attribute, and it's a determination, which pretends that I'm not more than that. The I thought pretends that I is not more than that, so I'm more than that. I'm not reducible to that. So I kill the I thought. Once that major event has occurred, of course it's a non-event because nothing changes. See, lots of people think that everything will change. They'll be obliged to change. I mean, I had this belief or this belief before. Well, I'm obliged to change. I was communist, so I cannot I'll be obliged to change. But that thing doesn't generate any change. It's the biggest change of the world, of the universe, but it doesn't generate any change necessarily. So that thing which is a very strange thing, I was telling you that thing was worked in a very strange fashion, way, very strange, and that our logic, usual logic, could not grasp that thing without saying stupid things about it. So that thing, that I principle is always more than what it is. So pure consciousness is not reducible. Even pure consciousness is not reducible to pure consciousness. Very strange, very strange. So the chap who wakes up, he woke up in the morning. He's perfectly alert and he feels alive, and he's absolutely convinced that he's fully conscient of everything, aware of everything, and of himself. En fait, he's in a dream. He's in a dream. When he wakes up in the middle of his own wake, which is a strange thing. Immediately that knowledge, but it's not an intellectual knowledge. It's so it's the same word, but with in an entirely different dimension. The signification is entirely different. Well, the knowledge is there, the direct, immediate knowledge is there that I'm not reducible to anything. But at that time, of course, I'm not. When that thing occurs, you don't. What is the thing I'm not reducible to? Well, people think that's their body. People think that's their feelings, negative feelings, negative emotions. Well, when you wake up, all that doesn't exist. It's much more simple. I'm not the thought which is merging from the I principle. Puff! I'm not that. And that you could say roughly that what is that thought? That first, that thought which is something like the mother of all the thoughts. What does it contain? What's the content? Well, it's the thought of the I thought. And of course, it looks exactly as, it's very ressemblant. Hein? It looks exactly as I. If you, on the concept level, no difference. It's a perfect picture. But the fact that the picture, where is the picture? It's there, and I'm here. So it's an usurpation. So I should that awful I thought. But I have no other problems, you see. My body, I don't care. It's not the problem. It's not the problem. The problem is to not to crash in the I thought and lose yourself.
So would you say that you use vigilance for that?
Yes. The only way to that I thought is very dangerous, very vicious. It's very dangerous because, well, perhaps when it merges in an infinite fraction of a second, I'm talking about the inner and spiritual time, not the time of my watch. It's innocent, but immediately it's going to corrupt, to rot, and after that the I thought becomes a horrible danger. I mean, it's queer because of course that thing occurs. It has an echo. You say echo in English. It has an echo in the human intelligence, and you say, well, where is the danger? The danger that the echo, if it's not approached with awareness, well, in the darkness of a non-awareness, it will become you. So you will say me, or to say I all your life, being absolutely convinced that you're dealing with the real I. In fact, you're dealing with the usurpator, you're dealing with the I thought. And so you've been reduced to the I thought. And the I thought is not just well, the word thought doesn't give the doesn't give the real nature of the I thought. The I thought is in the I thought you find all the belief we can have, and all the philosophies are there, all the dogma. How do you say dogma in English? Dogma. All the dogmas are there. So all the affirmation are there. So when you kill it, you kill all affirmations, all philosophies. And what I'm doing there, of course, what am I doing now? I'm putting out another philosophy, but that should be immediately destroyed.
So you catch it or you destroy it as soon as it comes about?
Yes,
it comes
yes. So when does it come? When, let's say in time, in terms of time, where, how can we relate that thing to time? Well, it's now. It's very simple. It's not yesterday, not yesterday, not tomorrow. It's not in a few seconds. It's now, right now. And inside our mind, see, because there's an earthly present, the present. You can find the present on earth, but that's another thing. And there's lots of confusion about that. People try to find the present on earth. Well, there's no harm in looking in that way and searching in that way, but there's a present which is purely spiritual. And that's so, there's a now which is purely spiritual. And that thing, let's say that thing is now, but in fact, it's a name of the thing. To speak, to say pure consciousness, to say I, to say being, or to say now, saying the same thing. Indeed, it doesn't exist in a general way. It exists in myself now, and you cannot find it in another place. But what, you see, you must insist on a point that, well, we saw that in that suitcase there was all our determinations. By God, there are many determinations and an ocean of determinations. And we are reduced to that. All the knowledge. So you must forget not what you lived before, not with your memory, what your memory shows to you, but you should forget what you know intellectually. All your, well, we are grounded in some belief. You say belief? Yeah. Always grounded. That ground seems very innocent and pure. It's the demon. You should destroy it. No ground. But what I'm saying is, and you see, it's not very difficult to see that there's another ground which is appearing. Is what I say, to destroy all the ground. Even that ground should be destroyed. And in that suitcase, first you say, to put the suitcase down, it's not easy because there's my father and my mother, there's my daughter, there's all I know, all the things I know. We know lots of things. It has no importance whether that knowledge is real or false, is true or false, has no importance. You see, I prefer to destroy the truth when it's true, when it's absolutely true. So what I say is absolutely true. At least I'm aiming at that. Well, the more it's true, the more it must be killed. So, all intellectual belief, all intellectual truth should be killed. But of course, this is already the start of another belief, and it should be killed immediately. So.
But to be able to kill them, you have to first see them.
Yes, you've got to see them, and it's very difficult.
Because you're totally
Yes, because we are very good in thinking, and I have nothing against thinking, but it's not the way to be, you see. If you're aiming at being, just being, well, thinking is not the role you should take. It's a way to know thinking. There's another way to know, just one. It's consciousness. Be aware. So, in fact, you should put on the side definitely that belief that you get somewhere in thinking. You'll get somewhere, and you'll connect your own reality only by awareness.
So you keep going. You can keep going back all the time, because every time you become aware of becoming aware, that's a thought. So you could just keep doing that all the time.
Yeah, and so at the moment, well, that's a very good objection. You could say it's a classical objection if there was more than 2 or 3 people in the world. So who does it puts out this objection. But it could be a classical objection. That objection, there's something charming there, absolutely charming. That at the moment, the chap realizes he does his work well, aware of that thought. Immediately, that awareness puts out another thought. I'm aware of that new thought. Perhaps I'm not, my speed is not as sufficient to grasp immediately the thing. But perhaps I'm a little late. But nevertheless, there's an evidence which merges, which is that whatever, there's a vicious thing. It's a vicious processus, like a vis sans fin. I don't know the English term for vis sans fin.
Vis sans fin is like a screw.
A screw without end, you see. So, in fact, at the moment, the chap would say, it's like a screw without end. It will go on everything. Each time I have a victory, it means that I've lost the war. So, but that's something charming there, because that's the main objection. The main objection. That vis sans fin, it's a main objection. But what is it? Look at it. Well, it's just a thought, and at that time, I'm out of the vicious spiral. So. The main error, you see, is not to have a mind and normal inner life, and ask yourself lots of questions and speak to yourself in your mind. No, that's absolutely charming. It's a play. You're reading, you don't know it, but you're reading a charming novel, very, very amusing. But that's quite charming. But it's we don't take it as a fiction. We take it for real, and at that time it corrupts. And it's starting to bite us, destroy us. And I'll say one more thing. After that, I'll quit. There's something very strange. The fact that I'm talking about what? I'm talking about pure existence. Well, pure existence in a way doesn't exist. You see, it's very light. When you think about it, it takes false reality. In fact, it's the only thing. Pure existence is the only thing in the world which doesn't exist. So it's very light. You could say that it's a burden. Yeah, I woke up and that yes, I'm God, and it's just with the weight of God is something. It's going to crush me and destroy me. Well, no, because it doesn't exist. You see, in the meaning we put in the word exist, normally it doesn't exist. The pure awakening as an object, which means as a thought, simply doesn't exist. So it's incredibly light.
yesterday you were talking about this, the process of thought and maybe of mental images also. Mental
yes.
images. And how they create a so-called reality.
Yes, you see, the very queer thing, because we have an intuition. We're not dead. Our intuitions are not all dead. Some are still alive, and we know very well that when we form a mental image, even when we produce a thought, in the limits of our mind, so-called limits of our mind, because in fact it's infinite, the mind. Well, we have the intuition that more or less that it's not very absolutely real, you see. We know very well that the mental image of that tree of my mother is not the tree of my mother. And when we get crazy, really crazy, we should be, on a dû nous passer à la camisole de force, when we go to the hospital, it's a psychiatric hospital, when we forget that. So when the chap walking the street speaking to an unexistent person and shouting and to that, well, obviously he forgot that that intuition we were speaking about has disappeared. So it's a mental image, and he doesn't recognize it, the mental image, as a mental image. So it thinks it's real, and we feel, in fact, we feel uneasy when we see that, and I think we have an intuition that the chap is violating a fundamental law of the mind, of the spirit, of being. He's teaching. C'est un traître. Comment on dit c'est traître? Traitor. Oui, c'est ça. Ouais. On a spiritual level, so we are very uneasy. We smile, but we are very uneasy looking at the chap. Well, after that, we look in ourselves, and I'm not like that chap. But of course, I'm like that chap, because I have some conscious mental images, or conscious thoughts. Well, if I'm conscious away dans la mesure, well, let's say, I'm more or less conscious of these thoughts, these mental images. So, if I'm more or less, but let's say roughly that they don't appear to me as realities, really. But that's the conscious part of our mind. That happens in the conscious part. So there, let's say we are gentlemen, and we act as gentlemen inside ourselves. But what we don't know is that the mind in which happens all these, in which raise these mental images, these thoughts of which we are more or less conscient, of which we are more or less aware, well, the mind itself is a mental image. The mind itself is a thought. So, but that mental image, we have no notion, we are absolutely unconscious of it. And my mind as a thought, we are absolutely, as an image or a mental image or as a thought, I'm unconscious of that. So how do I treat the thing? As reality. You see, when I think I'm doing this or this in my mind, well, see, if somebody told me that that was just a play, just a fiction, I wouldn't agree. Yeah? I'm in big sorrow. I'm working I'm working on a problem, and I have the biggest difficulties with the problem, so I'm suffering inside. So the chap comes and says, well, this isn't real. Yes, I won't say the rest of the sentence. So, but you've got the general idea what I mean. So all that is of the same nature as the mental image of the tree, which is more or less recognized as unreal. So let's say in that room there you find a few pictures. So you see, you look at that room looks like could be compared to our mind. There are windows. What the windows means what in our mind? The eyes. So it works out. There's no door, of course, no door in our mind. But a room, windows, which are our eyes, which pretend to be our eyes, and we take it for granted that all the thing which happens in our mind, whether they are positive or negative, usually they are negative, very negative. We suffer more than we are happy. Well, we take it for granted anyway that everything is real. This little mental image not very real. We recognize that. But me looking at the mental image, that's a fact. That's the truth. That's real. And the mind itself and the time, there's time, the inner time. That inner time obviously is real. I cannot do anything against it. It's not the inside, it comes from outside. If I say to somebody who feels that inner time, who is cut into little pieces by that inner time, all these little seconds, I'm borning and then I'm dying. I'm borning and I'm dying. Well, if you say to some chap who has that feeling that he's dreaming, you will get a blow in the face. But in fact, all this is a dream. So more or less, let's say, put it with that word, more or less we recognize that our mental images, even some thoughts, some thoughts when they are not too much affirmative, some thoughts are rather light, and okay, it's more or less unreal. Okay. But what we don't know is the whole goddamn thing is unreal. So after that, that's awful. My mind. So we may put out a conclusion, a deduction and a conclusion. Well, I don't have the right to think or to imagine or to pay attention because it's a dream. It's very bad. No, that's a deduction. That's part of the let's say part of the dream, of course, but the deteriorated dream. So you cannot deduce anything about what I'm trying to say. You see, it's not. You cannot use it on a logical level. Even if you use logic very purely, even if you think very purely, it cannot be used on the level of logic or thought. Each time you're going to deduce something, it will be the hallucination will come out again.
But that's important because when we read, for example, an article, when people will read what you're saying, they will be coming up as they read. They will be coming up with their own conclusions about it, and they'll say, "Oh yes, this I agree," or "Oh yes, this is true," or "Yes," you know. But in fact, it's being part of that same.
It will be part of the hallucination. You see. In fact, let's suppose that a mind, the inner man or woman, an inner human being, is in very good shape, and has all the tools which are needed to go backward to ourselves, behind all we think we are. Well, what is the ultimate, comment on dit obstacle en anglais?
Obstacle?
The ultimate obstacle. Yes. It's his belief in the reality of his research. See, I wrote that about Alain. I wrote a letter to Alain saying exactly that, and I thought I had the culot of publishing the letter. So, but it's true. the research itself is absolutely unreal. And if we go a long way in the right direction, at the moment, there won't be any more hallucination. The hallucination will be entirely concentrated in that belief that our research is real. Well, thought of the research, paf, nothing. And there you awake. So the research is finished. In fact, it's the belief that all the things which occur in our mind, I included, the I which is thinking, imaginer, qui imagine, well, that belief that the belief of the reality, concerning the reality of all these events and things which occur in the mind, well, this is the hallucination. So you don't have to despise all these events, all these things. You've just got to realize that it's unreal. The other thing, it's very difficult to. He will spit into your face if you give him that advice. Yet that he should let drop that research, but not on an intellectual level. Concretely, in some sense, poof, put the luggage down. In fact, at the moment, the luggage we were speaking about, well, what it contains is only the research itself. And so, in fact, the thing has been simplified. But you must absolutely put it down. Comment on dit renoncer en anglais? Renounce. Well, in a way, it's a word, renounce, which has a Christian resonance. So I don't take it that way. But I must use it. At a time, you must renounce. You see, the thing is real. I'm searching. I believe in myself searching, because, of course, it's a good search. And, no other search, really, on earth. Even in heaven, no other search. I must renounce. Let it drop. It's nothing. It's just a thought. You're dealing with yourself. You don't know it, but you're dealing with yourself. You disguise. It's a thought which is disguised, just part of yourself. It's disguised as something else, in an object. But you must. It's an usurpation, an imposture. So you must let it drop. It seems very difficult and very, very simple.
So, when we hear this, when we see that it's true, but then there's, in your life every day, there seems to be often two directions, which is like you follow the reason, you know what you should do because you know, but then you have also the intuition, which is like the more natural direction, and where things happen, you don't have to.
Yeah, there are two ways to know. One way is thinking, and use reasoning. You say that in English, yes. Reasoning. And the other way is to be aware. And we don't know that. In fact, we ignore that second way of knowing. We think we can only know by thinking, by that long mediation of a reflection, of our intellectual research. But it's absolutely true. At any time we can use the other tool and the other way of knowing, and know directly by consciousness. And some people would agree on that. They would agree, but they would object that nevertheless all the intelligence there is in the universe is in the thinking. Well, it's not true. Consciousness is infinitely intelligent. So you don't renounce in that direction. I mean, you don't have to, when you start to know with conscious attention in yourself, with consciousness, you don't become stupid. You see, you don't lose anything. All the intelligence of the world is there. It's an eureka. You see, that thing I'm talking about is an eureka. But it's an eureka. It's the light of intelligence making an extraordinary intrusion in the level of existence. Normally, thinking deals with thinking. It's with abstractions. It flies its own sky, and there, what we don't know is that intelligence can be used can appear and be effective on another level, the level of a pure existence. So there's the way of knowing. If you want to, to know how to build a house or how to make an addition, you've got thinking is very good. In the small life of every day, you go to the market, very good. But if you want to become yourself, that tool must be abandoned. It's of no use. You'll never get. You'll never get to yourself. You'll never be in possession of yourself if you use that tool. You must only. It's unuseful. You must use the right tool, which is consciousness, which could be described as intuitive knowledge, opposed to reasoning knowledge.
But then the use of this consciousness, of this kind of knowledge, implies that you put aside everything.
Yes, but even that, you see, even what you are saying, we put aside. Yeah. So the implication is I must put aside everything. For example, I have a wife, I have a daughter, I have some children, I even have some friends, very strangely. I have a few friends, and I like Earth, I like the trees, I like the sky, and the clouds in the sky. I like that. So yes, but of course that's an intellectual interpretation of what says the intuition. So I must kill what must be killed. That must not make any mistake while doing this. But you don't have. You see, once there's the intuition, I must renounce. So I must not be implicated on that crazy game. In the crazy game, you find everything. It's the whole universe, our whole field of consciousness. Well, that's an intuition, and you must ground yourself on that intuition. But the devil is there. In fact, he speaks, and he wants. So we don't really ground ourselves on the intuition. We present that intuitive knowledge to the reason, and with humility, and we are quite afraid of the answer, but we show it like if I find a diamond, I'm not sure it's real, but of course I should be sure it's real because it comes from my mother. My mother didn't buy any false diamonds, you see, and she was too good a woman to have some cheap thing on her. So just for my mother, I should take it for. I should accept the fact it's a diamond, but no. I have doubts. So the diamond is the I principle. That's the diamond. But I'm not sure. You see, I hesitate. Well, is it really a real diamond? I'm afraid. Maybe it's a false one. So I go to a shop and show it to a specialist. How do you call a bijoutier? Jewelry. Yeah, yes, and every time the chap he wants the diamond, it's false. I'll buy it for you for 10 francs. But so it's an enormous mistake. You see, you don't have to ask. You don't have to look for a confirmation of the intuitive knowledge. That's an enormous mistake, but we all make that mistake. And we demand, we ask the reason to a confirmation of the value of the infinite value. Well, you see, I've just made the infinite value. Oh, reason, please tell me whether it's true or not. That's an enormous mistake. And what's more, it's not only a mistake, comment on dit lâcheté en anglais? Where you act cowardly. Oui, yes. You're coward. You're a coward at that time, you see? You're a traitor. When you have an intuition, well, you must ground absolutely on it. And if the reasons will bark something, whoa, whoa, in your direction. No, it's a subjective looping and something. It'll never agree. It's like an intruder in the house. The intruder. Chap looks nice, but poor. I accept it in my house, and after that, slowly but firmly, he starts to regent everything. He becomes the boss. After that, he's sleeping with my wife. So, after a month, I mean, I know he's a dangerous man, very dangerous. He looks very nice, but he never agrees with what I say, what I feel. He says, no, this is shit. This is very poor. This is illusion. This is illusion. I've met God. No, this is illusion. I am God. See? And after that, he really sleeps with my wife. So I get angry. So I should get angry. I take a gun, I shoot him.